Welcome to Healing Childhood Trauma, the podcast for millennial women who are ready to heal from the past. Here, we have the deeper discussions on emotional well-being and practical tips that will empower you to transform your relationships and underlying anxiety from insecure to secure attachment. I'm Lysandra, your host and psychotherapist. I'm a little bit obsessed with human development, deep conversations, and finding the lesson even in the most challenging of circumstances. I'm very happy to have you with me on this journey of self-discovery where we unpack the past and heal in the present. It is so easy to get lost in a relationship, isn't it? Your identity, to lose your sense of self, because you're focusing more on the relationship and you are working on being more nurturing and showing up in your relationship. And I find that this is a typical thing that happens with people who are more anxiously attached, where they prioritize their relationship so much that they end up not considering or thinking about their own needs. And ultimately, they get lost. They get lost with knowing who they are and not having their own sense of self and feeling quite isolated from the things that they used to find made them. That is what I'm going to be talking about on today's episode. If you are more anxiously attached and you are in a relationship where you are an overgiver because you want to be loving, but at the same time, what you've noticed is that you don't necessarily get the same energy back in your relationship. The type of energy that you pour in and the time that you take to be thoughtful of other people in a romantic relationship maybe, or in a close relationship, in a friendship, you don't get that same level of care, level of love back. And while you are taking love language quizzes for other people to see what their love language is to fulfill their relational needs, you're not really thinking about taking the quiz for yourself. You're not really thinking about how do you pour self-love into you? How do you pour that love into yourself? Because you're very focused on relationships outside of you. If you've been feeling somewhat underwhelmed in your relationship and underappreciated, and generally a sense of feeling lost, I think you are probably going to connect with this episode and you're going to want to hear what my thoughts are on you being able to reconnect with yourself again, so that you can show up as a better version of you in your relationship and you're not constantly waiting on the validation from somebody else. You're not focusing all of your time and all of your attention on what you are not getting in your relationship, because you are filling your life and filling your time with starting to consider your own needs. With anxious attachment, there is this pattern of really focusing on meeting other people's needs, making other people happy, making other people feel loved. And quite often that's out of a place from not feeling that yourself, from not having that love and validation, from not feeling seen, that you don't want anybody else to experience. And you almost end up overcompensating in your relationships because you're trying to make sure that the people who are important to you don't ever experience that same level of hurt, because you're so acutely aware of how painful that is. And this can happen in new relationships, but it's also something that happens in more longer term relationships, especially if you are a mother and you then spend your time going from only having to think about maybe yourself and your partner to then also having another person that you have to take care of. With that responsibility, putting yourself lower on your list of priorities. And when we're not paying attention to it, it's something that's so gradual that you don't really realize what's happening until maybe one day you kind of look in the mirror and you don't recognize who you are anymore. You don't even remember the things that you used to do. You don't remember what you used to be like, the things you used to enjoy, and what essentially makes you, you. And being mindful of what somebody needs in a relationship is a lovely quality to have, and I don't want to disregard that at all or say that that shouldn't be your focus. But especially if you have an anxious attachment, that just shouldn't be your only focus. Because when it is your only focus, as I said, you get lost and you lose yourself. And eventually it leads to things like having very one-sided relationships where it feels like you're the person who is constantly overgiving and being attuned to what people need sometimes, even before they ask for it, even before they're aware that they need it. But as a result of you doing that, you're not paying attention to what your needs are, and your needs are not being met or fulfilled. And the unhealthy dynamic that happens when you have more of an anxious attachment or more anxious traits is because you are so focused on keeping your relationships. There can be many ways that you self-abandon and minimize your own needs in order to keep others around you. In your mind, you're keeping those relationships in order for you to be able to heal from your experiences of the past. And with anxious attachment, you tend to have had experiences where your needs were not met. You often felt ignored or unimportant. You often felt like you had to deal with things on your own, when really you actually needed a lot more support. You needed a lot more validation, and that doesn't make it a bad thing. Having needs in relationships doesn't make you needy. It just means you have needs in relationships, and we all do. We all have things that we need in our relationships in order for us to feel like we're cared for and that we're important. But if you are somebody who only focuses on doing that for other people, why are you not doing that for yourself? When you're not doing that for yourself, that's often related to not believing you are worthy of that, not believing you are worthy of the love that you so freely give to other people, not believing that you are good enough. And in order to be able to change those patterns, and in order for us to feel worthy, in order for us to heal those wounds, so we are not loving people out of a fear of losing them, we have to start working on that relationship that we have with ourselves. And that comes through the way that we treat ourselves. I have also recorded a previous episode on how to heal from anxious attachment. So you are most welcome to listen to that episode too. But this is just one aspect of how you heal those patterns by not losing yourself in relationships. Only being defined by being in a relationship or feeling seen in our relationship puts us in a very vulnerable position. It means we're putting ourselves in a position where we rely on that validation in order for us to feel loved. And while it's normal to have and seek and want validation, that can't be the only thing that ties us to our self-worth, that makes us feel good enough. Because something as fragile as that can easily be taken away. And maintaining your own identity is also part of healthy boundaries in a relationship, because no one relationship should have the expectation of fulfilling all of your emotional, physical, practical needs. And quite often it puts a lot of unhealthy pressure on relationships if you haven't got anything going on in your life outside of the relationship, outside of this person. It puts a lot of pressure on them that they have to consistently show up, because if they don't, that's going to impact how you feel. And as soon as they do something else, which again is entirely healthy, it's healthy in a relationship for you to be in connection with each other. And in this sense, I'm talking of a romantic relationship. It's healthy to be in connection with each other, but it's equally as healthy to be in connection with others and also yourself, because that also helps you to build a stronger connection in your relationship. If you're also doing other things, you're also fulfilling and meeting your needs in other areas, because we also have social needs. We have needs of belonging. We have the need of, tapping into our creativity, or being playful, being joyful, spending time doing interests or having interests that relate to us and what we are interested in, rather than always taking part in interests that really we don't connect with. And it's okay to do something that isn't solely focused on you and for you, but there really has to be a balance, especially if you are wanting to work on your secure attachment patterns. This is absolutely something that I see my more secure clients do, and also how you can start to move out of anxious attachment patterning is to start paying attention and noticing what your own needs are. This might be something that you do on a daily basis, but if it's something you're not used to doing, it might not start with a daily practice or a daily check-in. It might be something that you pay more attention to maybe on a weekly basis, and just making sure that with whatever else you have got going on, you're also factoring what you need. It could be that you need more rest. It could be that you need more alone time. It could mean that you need more time with friends. It could mean more time in nature. It could be more time moving your body. But it's just moving that focus from being very external and thinking more about what does everybody else need, what do people, what is my role in taking care of people, and shifting that to start considering, well, what do I need in order to take care of me? Because the more that you take care of yourself, it actually means that you can show up better and healthier in your relationships. And quite often when you have an anxious attachment style and you're in a relationship, it's quite likely that quite often you are triggered by certain things that are happening in the relationship or that are not happening in the relationship. And what I see is that those triggers feel more intense and are more regular when you are not tending to your own needs. It almost reinforces your triggers of feeling invalidated, feeling unimportant, feeling not seen, because you're not giving that to yourself. And you are putting it into the hands of your relationship, and you are hoping that your relationship can meet all of those needs for you. And they can meet some of your needs, but they can't meet all of your needs. And so we need to have healthy balance, and a more secure approach is considering what's good for me. Does this work for me? How am I feeling? What do I need right now? You can use those questions to kind of check in with yourself, even on a daily basis. When we are also pouring into ourselves, that makes us better partners to be around. It changes our mood. It helps to regulate our own nervous systems so that when we are triggered, we can actually be a bit more rational about what is happening in the moment, and we can calm ourselves down much quicker, much sooner, because we are learning how to be more in connection with ourselves, which when you are anxiously attached, you don't tend to do that as much as you probably could. That being said, if you do lean towards more of an anxious attachment, and you have more of those traits, this is just a gentle invitation for you to reflect on how much you are focusing on your relationship outside of yourself, and where perhaps you need to make those adjustments so that there is more of a balance, that you are pouring as much into your romantic relationships as you are into the relationship with yourself. Because the relationship with yourself is the most important relationship you will ever have, and it helps you to show up and be better in relationships. You can be better in romantic relationships, you can be a better parent, you can be a better friend when you are resourced and you are looking after yourself. And the more you are in connection with you, it helps you to be in more connection with others. It actually deepens your relationship. There might need to be a bit of a perspective or a mindset shift, that if you are doing something that is just for you, that one, it is not selfish, and two, it's not taking anything away from the relationship, for you to sometimes prioritize what it is that you need in order to come back for stronger and deeper connection. This is a lot of the work that I do with my clients, and good news, I am actually accepting clients at the moment. I will drop a link in the show notes if you would like to book a free 15-minute consultation, and we can talk through how we can help you to work through your attachment issues so that you can heal from the past and have better relationships, which is what we all want. We want to have better relationships. And so that is my focus for you. If you have an anxious attachment style, the odds are very high that you might be in a relationship with somebody who is very, or at least a little, avoidant. And that in itself is going to be very triggering for you, and is a huge learning curve. And what you might experience is things like jealousy when they are spending time doing other things without you, And where that jealousy will come in, because quite often you're actually waiting around for them. You're waiting around for them to finish their plans so that you can be available to them. But while you're doing that, you're feeling unfulfilled because you're not paying attention to what your needs are. You're just spending your time waiting, and you could be focusing on doing something fun. But instead, it's almost like you put your life and your needs on hold because you're just waiting until they're available. And maybe you start to feel resentful about that. And maybe you even feel somewhat embarrassed or ashamed that you feel jealous that they're doing something without you. But use that feeling of jealousy as a sign, because that's usually a sign of we're not getting a need met. We're not feeling valued. We're not feeling important. And in the context of this type of relationship dynamic, it's not exactly fair to expect your partner to not do anything outside of you or outside of the relationship. It's not exactly a fair or a reasonable request. So use that as your sign to pay more attention to, well, where is that feeling coming from? And what is my part in this? Is there something that I can do to help manage this feeling? Because that feeling is your own. You are in control of that emotion. You are in control of how you then deal with that emotion and what you do with that information. Instead of being triggered and perhaps starting a fight with your partner because you're not feeling as though they're spending the quality time that you value, which sometimes, it is a very valid point. And wanting to have quality time with your spouse or with somebody that you care about in a friendship, that's entirely normal. But it's also normal to have needs in other areas and to have interests in other areas, because that's how we stay true to ourselves. That's how we stay connected to ourselves. That's our reminder for ourselves that we are important, that we are worth the time. We have to be willing to do that for ourselves. Okay, I hope this episode has felt like a warm hug as it was intended. Speak to you soon. Bye. Thank you for joining this episode of Healing Childhood Trauma. I hope you found today's discussion insightful and empowering. Remember, healing is a journey and you are not alone on this path. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favourite podcast platform. And you can share this episode with a friend. Your feedback helps this podcast to reach more women who are ready to heal and build secure, healthy relationships and heal from the past.